What if women went on a sex strike before the midterms? What if? Let's talk about what regressive means, okay? So, progressive means you want to expand civil liberties and you generally want to progress. In some instances, it can mean moving away from tradition. Not necessarily, though. Generally, what it means to me is that there are certain things we think are bad from the old ways, but we want to keep the good things from the old ways. Something that was really profound to me is that the idea of innocence until the presumption of innocence actually is in the Bible, which is pretty fascinating. It's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah when, I can't remember the dude's name because I'm not a big Bible person, but he says something to the effect of, will you spare the city for 50 virtuous people? And God basically says, ultimately, if there's one innocent person, I will not condemn the entirety of the city. The idea being that it is better to protect the innocent than it is to punish the guilty, right? You don't want to punish innocent people. Anyway, we're going on a tangent here. The point is, CNN has this article asking whether or not women should go on a sex strike. And this is regressive because women withholding sex in exchange for some kind of, power or status is something you would expect the olden days to consist of. In today's day and age, women contribute to society in the office. And they do things outside of providing men with service. And this is literally what the article is about. It's about women who provide service to men, even when they don't want it, because it's about pleasuring men. And I wonder if they're actually advocating for something like this. Are they really saying that women should regress to a time when they used sex purely for political power? I'm sorry, when sex was being used for political power in certain circumstances, right? Whereas today, sure, it still is, of course. But what I mean is that the role of the housewife and the mother and servicing the husbands, and this is what she talks about. She says, I snapped to attention the first time I heard the term service sex. I heard it in 2017 from a researcher at an annual sex research conference in Montreal. The expert was describing straight women who were distressed because they didn't feel desire for their husbands or long-term partners. Wanting to keep their men happy, these women often had sex anyway with a resigned attitude and little thought of their own pleasure. Yeah. It's easy to argue service sex is just a fancy term for being a good wife or girlfriend. The problem with this belief is that it equates female goodness with sacrificing one's pleasure for someone else's. I get it. It's time for a revolution at the polls and in the bedroom. And in our understanding of who women are, sexually or otherwise, given the tight interweaving of economic and political power with sexual entitlement, female sexual autonomy has never been more urgent, and women's pleasure has never been more political. Let's consider what it might mean to go on a sex strike of sorts, to get what we want rather than to give what we think we owe others. Is that what she thinks is happening? I'll tell you what, I wouldn't stay in a relationship with a woman who was not into it and felt like she was just exchanging a material good with me. There's no point in that, right? Unless, of course, you are both in the family specifically to raise kids, then sure, that's your argument. But the point is, it's extremely, what's the opposite of sanctity? The way they treat this is like it's not a special thing. It's not whatever. They say she says, sex and status are linked. Where men have the tightest grip on resources and power, our society, including the women in their lives, will prioritize their pleasure and create false narratives about what women deserve, sexually or otherwise. To wit, in 2018, the number of female CEOs of U.S. Fortune 500 companies dropped 25% to 24 women total among hundreds of men leading each industry, tech, manufacturing, and other sectors. On a more workaday level, according to World Bank data, U.S. ranks an unimpressive. She's very wordy. Get to the point. American women, particularly women of color, continue to earn. Yes, we get it. Seriously. A woman's strike against service sex, a refusal to do it out of a sense of obligation, would force us to confront these basic inequalities. Our current administration has amped up the notion that women are mere extensions of male will and pleasure, there to serve at every turn. This perspective is horribly regressive, and this is one of the issues that I take often with the left. Because I grew up in a progressive environment where these things are not the perspective because they're old and we kind of are doing away with them. It is these people who are bringing it back. It is not like, okay, first of all, I'll say a lot of traditionalists and conservatives, of course they want to maintain these things. But when you have people on the left saying, it's true and maybe we should exercise it. Okay, well, you're regressing. You're regressive. You're not progressive. And can I just point out, whatever the point is she's trying to make about a strike, I'll tell you, one of three things will happen if women go on a sex strike. One, men will find non-political or willing partners. This woman does not speak for all women, and there's no way for every woman, to agree on a strike. The second thing is, guys will go and take care of things themselves, right? Because what's a guy gonna do? And thirdly, the guy will sit around and play video games and not really think about it because there's only a few days left until the midterms anyway. Right? It's not like the guy's gonna die, all right? But more importantly, all of these three things happen concurrently with whatever it is they're doing or not doing. Men are often trying to seek interested women, no matter what their political beliefs. So politics are playing a bigger role in it. Men often take care of things themselves, and men are often sitting around playing video games, or, you know what I mean, doing some hobby of some sort. This is an extremely, I don't know what the right word is, but I feel like the people who believe things like this, the regressive left, the identitarians, live in a terrifying world. If this is what she sees, when she goes out and looks at men, her brain just computes like, this guy's buying me coffee not because he just felt like grabbing it this one time, it's because he wants something in return. Yes, there are men who believe that, and typically they're made fun of. There's like a whole nice guys subreddit for men who think they're owed something, because you're not. And regular human beings who don't believe whatever this nonsense is, don't think they're doing things specifically for a sexual exchange with a woman. That's like an extremely archaic or, this is the thing about, I guess, intersectional feminism, right? When I was watching that Jordan Peterson debate with Helen Lewis of GQ, I don't know if you've seen it, but I recommend it. Everything she says is in line with this view of this extreme patriarchy. And Jordan Peterson's like, it's not that way, things are multivariate, and you're making presumptions about the world based on your ideology. And that's how I see this. Like, the woman writing about this, saying there should be a strike, has an extremely strange and enclosed worldview. What I think it is? I think they can't empathize. That's really what I think it is. Like, when people say things like, fascism is back in the United States, I'm like, if you look at everybody who voted for Donald Trump or didn't vote for Hillary Clinton and think they're all fascists, you literally have zero empathy. That means you have no idea how to place yourself in the shoes of others and try to understand the needs and desires of other human beings, okay? Now, I can understand the dispute over the idea of service sex, for sure. It should be, men and women should be doing something together. It's a contract of sorts where you're like, hey, we both want to do this thing, and consent is really important. But this is some idea of like a regressive worldview. She must be surrounded by men, by nice guys. There's a really fascinating thing about this idea. When you constantly hear feminists and intersectional feminists talk about the patriarchy and like a culture of abuse and assault, I'm like, I don't see that, right? And I don't see any of the guys I know interacting in that way. And then you realize something. The reason they see it is because they're literally surrounded by skeevy male feminist types who are abusers, who think they're doing something in exchange for something else. This woman is likely surrounded by these types of people who are doing things specifically to exchange some kind of biological transaction. Whereas people like me and my friends, none of us interact that way. So they truly do live in a weird world where, and I think this is why they're so collectivist and why, women are so polarized. So let's go back down and see what she says. Resetting the balance so women no longer provide service is not in itself a comprehensive answer to gendered inequalities, of course. But making sex female-focused and female pleasure-centric could begin to force other shifts in thinking in important ways. And this is another aspect of the leftist ideology, not left-wing like policy or academic policy, but like the identitarian stuff, the feminist, intersectional feminist stuff, is this idea that they're subjugated and oppressed. And literally, you don't see movies all the time where sex is female-centric, where the guy is mocked for the size of his junk, or the idea that he couldn't get the woman off. Like, this is a common trope in society. It goes both ways, right? For the most part, I would argue that you could say sex is female-focused. Women are in control. For the most part, guys want to do it all the time. Women don't. Therefore, women are the ones who get to choose. Most of the time, there are abusers and evil men who do evil things, for sure. A smaller percentage of evil women who do stuff like that. But the general idea is, it is a common trope in films that women hold the power in relationships, in terms of sex. And then, for whatever reason, it must be whoever these people are surrounding themselves with. But let's find her conclusion. Women don't owe men a thing, and vice versa. If anything, the statistics show we are owed. Oh, no, you're wrong. It's time to make sexual pleasure female-centric. Each couple, each woman will have to find out what female adventure and pleasures means for them. But the idea of a sex strike suggests exciting possibilities beyond the bedroom. What would not just sex but the world look like if we prioritized what women want in every sex act? I mean, it's kind of 50-50, you know what I mean? Like, people have different things, they want different things. How might the political, social, and sexual landscapes all shift if we acknowledge that in many cases the server is unsatisfied and actually believed it was important to set things right? Can I just point out, this is like an extreme narcissistic worldview where she thinks everyone thinks the way she does, and this is one of the biggest problems with whatever this identitarian leftist stuff is. Egoism. Egocentrism. Right, the point is, in movies, when a guy goes too quick, they make fun of him. There are jokes dating back probably hundreds of years about men being too fast, if you get what I mean. It just goes to show that the reality is men and women are typically balanced in a lot of things, and as society changes and technology advances, different rights can be afforded to different people. The past wasn't equal. There were certain things that were unfair and unjust, but as we develop better technologies, people become more free. And now we've got ideologues who are trying to revert that civil liberty and those freedoms because they have very twisted worldviews about how people should interact. I don't know, man. My friends are all kind of chill, hippie-ish, you know, pot smoking, skateboarding, music playing, and their attitudes are always like, yeah, man, like, reciprocation, reciprocal behavior. You got me, I got you. There we go. I don't know where she lives. Maybe she's not far left, but I could only assume she is. Anyway, this article is going around, so I figured it'd be funny to read. But stick around, I got a couple more videos coming up in just a few minutes. The next article, apparently, they want to run Hillary in 2020, and I'm done. I'm over it. You're nuts. Stick around.